The next chapter in Allies is entitled Sabotage. Before we begin, I do want to again give a quick shout out to Scholastic Books for allowing us to read these to you guys online and do a video recording of the chapters. Sabotage. Samira hurried outside with the station keeper. A train with tanks on it got past? The tracks were blown. Nothing else could get through the tunnel, not until long after the invasion was over. But a train full of tanks could be used against the English and the Americans right now. And if the invasion failed, but what can we do? Samara asked. You see that big lever? The one that switches the tracks, said de Compiègne. Move it to the middle, and we'll hammer wooden blocks in the gaps. That might derail the train. In case it doesn't, I'll loosen some of the bolts on the track down the line. We have to hurry, though. The train will be on top of us in no time. I'll start loosening the bolts, a familiar voice said. You two jam the switch. Samira jumped as Jason emerged from the shadows of the station. You, Samira said. I thought you'd gone on ahead with the others. Odysseus left me to watch de Compiègne just in case. I thought you said we could trust him. Jason shrugged. I guess I was right. But at least I didn't fall asleep, he said with a smile. Samira scowled and ran to help de Compiègne with the switch. Fetch me a couple of blocks of wood from the woodpile, de Compiègne told her. She was back in seconds, and Cyrano barked happily at her heels. It was all great fun to him, but in minutes, a train weighed down with dozens of tanks was going to come barreling by unless they could stop it. Samira and de Compiègne wedged the blocks in place, and he hammered them home with a sledgehammer. Good. Here, quickly, he said, panting. He grabbed another of the T shaped tools. They ran to where Jason was already working. Each piece of railroad track was about 12 meters long and attached to the big wooden railroad ties by bolts that screwed down to hold it tight. De Compiègne fitted the T shaped tool over one of the bolts and grunted, trying to turn it. Getting the bolts loose was hard, and it took a lot of strength to get them to budge. Jason had only gotten three loose already. Working together, Samira and de Compiègne were as strong as Jason, and now they were pulling twice the number of bolts loose. How is taking just one piece of track out going to do anything? Samira asked as they strained against another bolt. All it takes for a thing that big and heavy and fast to come crashing down is to get it to slip its track, Jason explained. This works better than dynamite, but in daylight, the engineers usually see the missing track and stop the train. Samira felt a shuddering vibration deep down in her stomach. De Compiègne stopped pulling at the T wrench and put his ear to the tracks. It's almost here, quickly, we must get away, he said. But they had only taken out half of the train of the rail's bolts. Quick, hand me that sledgehammer, Jason cried. The train was coming around the bend. Samira could hear the steady chug, chug, chug of the steam engine. Its headlight illuminated the curve of track. De Compiègne dragged her away as Jason hefted the sledgehammer and brought it down on the side of the rail. Clang! And then again, clang! Knocking it a few more centimeters askew each time. He kept swinging even as the train bore down on him. Jason! Samira yelled. Beside her, de Compiègne was frantically waving his arms to the one side. He was warning the train that they had sabotaged the tracks. Samir grabbed at his hands and tried to stop him. What are you doing? Don't tell him what we've done. They can't stop the train in time now, even if they wanted to. Not with how fast they're going, de Compiègne told her. But those engineers, they're French. We have to tell them to jump. Samira understood, and they both jumped up and down, waving their arms to get the attention of the engineers. The train charged closer. Jason still clanged away desperately, fully lit by the train's light now. The engineers saw him and Samira and de Compiègne, and they jumped out of both sides of the engine, tumbling hard and dragging themselves away as best as they could. The train plowed through the wooden blocks, that she and de Compiègne had hammered in at the switch like they weren't there, shattering them like toothpicks as it roared on. And suddenly, Samira was lifted up into de Compiègne's arms, and he ran away from the tracks, Cyrano at his heels. Jason! Jason, get out of there! Samira cried. She saw Jason leap away at the last second, and then the train hit the empty space where the bent track had once been.